Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Seasonal Tokens Podcast, where Polar interviews people so you can do more investing and less gambling.
Hello everyone, it is Polar here with Seasonal Tokens Podcast. Welcome in the first episode. I'm very happy to be here with you, and it's amazing pleasure for me to have for our first guest the creator and the founder of the Seasonal Tokens. So welcome, Ron.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I hope that you'll have some fun today. I have prepared a lot of questions for you because I believe people should know more about seasonal tokens and, of course, more about you.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, so in that matter, let me start with the first question, which I suppose will not surprise you. So can you introduce yourself and your background with a few words?
So I started off in physics, and then I moved into neuroscience, and then from there into finance. And I worked in cryptography as well for a few years. So I have a background that's good from the point of view of understanding cryptocurrencies and how they interact with markets and so on. So that's basically my background.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. Like, I didn't want to ask you this, but what's actually the relation between neuroscience and crypto?
Relationship between neuroscience and crypto. Well, there's a relationship between neuroscience and economics, which is that the cells that in the brain that pass neurotransmitters between each other. Those neurotransmitters are mostly sugars, or they're derived from sugars. They're substances like glutamate and so on. And these are essentially sending little bits of energy back and forth between the cells, energy in the form of sugar. So there's kind of an economy that's going on in the brain. And that's, in a certain sense, that's like a financial market where there's information being transmitted, and there's also an economic component that measures, in a sense, the value of that, which is whether or not it's worth sending a sugar to another cell in order to send a signal. So there's a relationship between finance and neuroscience, not so much between cryptography and neuroscience. There are some people who say that the brain is encoding and decoding things, and it has schemes for taking visual or sensory or perceptual data and encoding it into some specific format, which is something like cryptography, but that's all very speculative, and we don't actually have a clear decoding of the signals in the brain yet.
Yeah, I didn't expect this answer. I think that we have the first news in the podcast. Like, for the first time, we have found the relation between neuroscience and crypto. I thought that no one has ever expected that such thing actually exists. But I believe that what is happening in technology is very much related to the nature, and we are just discovering the nature in a technology or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Actually, this reminds me to a company. I don't remember the name, but they have been spending a lot of times researching the habits and the life of different animals. For example, ants, and they have discovered amazing ways to actually do things more effectively by implementing things that ants are doing in our real life.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so they have even created something like a notebook that actually has all these discoveries, and you can implement this in your business, which can help you to actually innovate more, because you are implementing strategies that people are not using because they haven't heard about them, and they're only part of the nature so far. So, like, I think that you have explained it very well, this connection, and it's another, I think, proof that actually the nature has already created everything that we need. We just need to discover how to implement it in the best possible way for us as humans. Like, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So life has been around on Earth for 3 billion years, so it's had plenty of time to experiment and find all the technologies. So biology is doing very advanced things, and we don't understand them all yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm a nature person, and I believe that everything is written in the nature. We just need the eyes and probably the right knowledge in order to be able to read it. Like something like the cryptography that you said, but in a very, very difficult language that may take us many years before we discover what we should know and probably what we shouldn't know.
Yeah, definitely. And it is incredibly complicated. If you look at what's going on inside a single cell, if you just try to draw a chart of all the proteins that interact and all the genes and when they get activated and what controls them and so on, the result is incredibly horrifically complicated and it's too complicated for a human mind to understand in its full entirety. So there's some very complicated things going on in biology.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry for this small change of the topic, but I think that this relation is very important for people to know about and think more about it when they are in the nature, because I think that all the answers of our questions are actually in the nature. Anyway, so my next question, of course, is like, we are talking about neuroscience, cryptography, and things like that. But how did you actually come up with the idea of seasonal tokens?
So that's actually interesting because it's related to nature as well. So there are agricultural commodities and they have seasonality. So they're predictably expensive at certain times of the year, usually when harvest seasons or times when they're produced in large quantities, and they're less expensive at other times of the year. So they're more expensive at some times and less expensive at other times of the year, and this is predictable. So this seasonality is something that's desirable from an investment point of view because you can anticipate the changes in price and you can trade the commodities and you can make a profit. But what the problem with seasonality that you find in agricultural commodities is that it tends to be the case that everything is produced at the same time. And it's like this with the market as well. There are market cycles, but it tends to be the case that everything does well at the same time and everything does badly at the same time. So what you would really like in an ideal investment or an ideal collection of investments that you could use in a system is to have a price that goes up predictably at a certain time. And then when that's finished going up, there's another price that is just starting to go up, so that you can switch your investment from the one which has just gone up to the one which is just about to go up. And if you can keep doing that, then you'll have an investment that's continually doing well. And so that would be like if it was the case in nature that, say, for example, apples did well at the beginning of the year, and then oranges did well 3 months later, and then grapes did well sometime after that. If you could switch your investment from one to the other, then you could have an investment in whatever commodity is always going up in price. So that would be desirable, but it's hard to find examples of investments like that form a sequential, predictable sequence where one goes up in price right after another. It's hard to find that in nature, and it's hard to find it in the stock market. But what you can do is you can synthesize cryptocurrencies and you can build a seasonality into them. And so that's what I've done with seasonal tokens. Basically, I've organized it so that spring will tend to go up in price, and then summer will tend to go up, and then autumn, and then winter. And so you can switch your investment from one to the next.